All right, I'm back with story time, and to give you guys more insight on our history and how to look at it from an objective point of view. And sorry for the audio. I wasn't never. This was never my intention in life, but for some reason, God, you got me, guys. So that's where we're going with God. God does love people that love Him. That's for sure. Sometimes we don't think He does, but in the long run, faith, brothers, sisters throughout the world, because we're all in on this. And if they've done it to America, that means they've done it to the rest of the world. And I'm going to show you where they've hidden truth and they've lied, but yet they tell you right to their face what they exactly did. So I wanted to show you CF&I, and this is covering the history and everything of smelting, or not smelting, but the steel mill plants. Finishing up with what I promised I was going to do. So I'm sorry, there's so much information to cover, and it's a new thing. Every time I put one of these together, like I keep thinking of all the different ways I can explain this to show you guys the absolute truth when you understand it and you know what to look for and how to read. And I'm going to tell you right now, the American English, I'm almost betting that's Babylonian language, because the more and more I read it and the more and more I start to understand it, it's very, yeah, they purposely made this language confusing, and they purposely kept two sides of the story, one for the average person and then one's for the rich and ruling powers, so that way they can always control the minority. And that's the thing, guys. It doesn't matter what race you are, because if you go back in history and actually look at what they've told you, they're the ones that have started all this race hatred. They're the ones that mass move people from all over the earth. They're the ones that have done this before with vaccinations, and they've done this before with diseases. And I'm going to tell you right now, when you look at, let's just say in Chicago, when they said that there was, the sewer systems were running down the middle of the streets and it got everybody sick. I kind of went over in that my video, the the fictional story of them raising the city by an average of 4 to 5 feet in the air in order to put in a sewer system, a functioning sewer system. And that was basically the first city in the United States to get plumbing. And then, like I said, these sunborn maps are so very important. But remember this date: the first rail came out of the plant in 1882. This was actually to build the narrow gauge railroad, is what this was supposed to be. That's what they tell you it is. And then it depends on where you get your information from. But I'm telling you, when you start looking at the all of this stuff and you read all the, I mean, it's just, oh my God, somebody went through, they made stories and they told you it's, oh man, when people wake up, and I'm telling you, it's going to hit you so hard. You won't believe how hard it's going to hit you. All right, so my history and my drives and stuff. This is how much information I have just in this one drive. I have another drive on another account that's just as full, and instead of having it in one drive, because I'm telling you what I'm touching into is I probably is going to get me somewhere 6 feet, or digging for some dirt, or pushing up some daisies, if you get my drift. Because I did I there's no denying it now. I have them. And so one of the things I want you guys to understand is the records of everything and how all this started. And the thing is you have to read history in order to come to understanding of what they did. And so that's one of the things that, I went through and I looked at certain newspapers, see what they had, and just this stuff, like with, oh man, I can't remember, is it Sawachi or P? It's really weird the way they pronounce it. But so it was basically part of the UT language, and the blue earth or water at blue earth. And then if you come down here, this one means sand dunes. So this is from the trusted website Wikipedia. And then this one is from the town of Sakat. I'm sorry, I don't mean to, but it's just it's one of those things, like, oh man, the English language. And now you can understand, because it's such a mix of everything. That's why it's easy to word it certain ways. And then this was the that I caught, was this Sachs, I'm assuming the E is silent, but Kramer, this is one of the things that they were talking about in the article, and you have to read it. So I don't want to take you guys up for a long time on reading all that and going through it. I just wanted to give you a brief understanding of it. So just keep this in mind. The first rail came out in 1882. All right, so let's do some history on this. And I read this one in my last one, and I really want you guys to hear this again. A great fire burned much of Denver business district ground in 1863. The following year, a flash flood swept down Cherry Creek, killing 20 and causing $1 million in damage. Okay, so, and then and shortly after that, an Indian war broke out and cutting the stations. So this is where they had stagecoach stations. So here, let's so you guys can understand this, because people that have never looked into this, never understood this, how this would really work, and you have to think about that. Okay, so until they got the railroad from Omaha to connect to Cheyenne, and then down to Denver in 1870, there was no way to move any kind of heavy materials or anything into Colorado without the train. And let me explain that, because I'm going to show you pictures of the insanity of this. Okay, so let's really understand this. There was no way into Colorado other than horse and wagon, and there had to be trails. And I'm almost betting that Omaha, Nebraska was not the center hub. I know Kansas City was because the size of it, and then two, it's more of a direct shot into Denver, and then also down to Pueblo, Colorado. Now this is where things you have to know what history is and what they've done to us. And one of the things I want to show you when I cover all this is covering this single gauge railroad, and this is where it's going to tie into Central City when they got the railroad. So if you watch the PBS special on the flood, and you look at what they're telling you when they go to the deal when Pueblo got flooded out in 1921, they tell you that there was only way out of Denver for rail traffic going west was going through Pueblo. So that means there was no way out for it to go from Cheyenne and on over, because that would have been the easiest if they did the Continental Railroad first, but they didn't. And these maps show it, and you just have to know. So this one is a map of 1886. Okay, so let's really think about this. When they got the train in 1870 in Denver, they went through and just hammered this out in record time with all the mining towns and everything. So the mining towns, about 1880 is when they were starting to get all the mining towns. So that's where I'm going to show you the really crazy part about this, because you have to think about traveling up in the mountains, what it's like. And let's I just want to give you how hilly hilly it is in Colorado. Just going from why don't we do this? Why don't we go from Colorado Springs? Just where's the little guy at? There he is. Let's let's just drop him between we'll drop him right around there. See what he shows for terrain. And you can see that it's pretty flat right here. I was hoping it was going to drop. There's a place back here where it gets really hilly, and that's where I thought I was going to drop in, but I guess I didn't. But let's do reality on what it would have been like for them to travel, and this is it, guys, right here. This is wood being pulled up to Salida. Now I can tell you right now, they didn't get this wood up there four-wheeling, because you have to think about the road up to Salida, and it takes you about an hour driving in a car, and it's a paved highway. So you imagine leaving, because the nearest place would have been to get materials would have been Canyon City or Pueblo, because they would have been your biggest stop until they got the railroad in order to be able to ship more out. And that's what I'm trying to help you understand. There's no way you would have left from Kansas City, and that's what they had to do. Leave from Kansas City until they got the railroad like this. And look at the amount of horsepower or mills or cows. They kind of look like cows, but hey. So taking them across vast territory. Let's go back into that just to give you guys an idea. Like when you put this together, you're really gonna, yeah. Okay, so if you're traveling from Kansas, because I'm telling you that would have been the quickest place, unless Omaha, Nebraska supplied all the steel for all of this. And what I mean by that, they had to supply the steel in order to build the steel mill. And the steel mill wasn't created till 1878, 79 is when they came together. And see, when I'm telling you, you have to read history and understand what they're telling you. It's like the John Galt story. You know, all these companies went bankrupt, merged, reconsolidated, you know, and they tell you about all the wars, like it was a train war. And that's just it. I bet you it was a war in the United States, and we lost that war to whoever. But thank God we had forefathers that, you know, put in the Constitution. They gave us a chance. And when they put that in, you know, you read history or watch it, they were the most hated people, and they didn't have very good lives. You know, and that's just where we're at, guys. You have to come together as Americans. Put your religious beliefs down to the side and think exactly like this. Love your neighbor with your whole heart and soul is the second commandment. First and foremost commandment is love God, your God, with your whole heart and soul. So if you apply those two things, Jesus said the entire Bible is covered, and mankind has used that as a weapon against all of us. And when you figure this out, like I said, it's oh man, I'm seriously, that's the only reason I want God to let me see all this finally. Please just let me see it. Because when it happens, I'm just gonna be but I'm gonna also feel sorry for so many people that were lied to. So I'll keep making videos and try to connect these all. I had to kind of do this one because the audio went screwed up, and hopefully it's not screwed up on this one. But if not, if you have any suggestions what it might be, please let me know, and then that way I can try to fix it. Because I'm not the video guy. Just a construction worker that loves metal, and his country was founded on metal, and well, it's time to bring us back under God, under one nation. And there's a reason why they wanted church and state separated, so they could bring in their church for their states. And that's where we are, guys. We were conquered. And I'm going to show you that if you follow me through the history and you critically think of what they're telling you, think about how long it would actually take you to do the job. And if not, how would you hire somebody to know to do the job? So I'm telling you, you live in this country. You understand it. And I'm not saying to do this. I'm just saying as an idea to concentrate and think about that. If you were going to do this today, what would you need to do to start all this? And think about that. It was one of the most coordinated efforts ever I've seen. I can't believe our history and how well we were at one time as a people. Okay, so this is a picture of Lamar Street or Laramie Street in Denver. So very important on this. But here, these two streets is actually the same one. You can see right here, Saloon House and Pacific House. You can see where these original houses have been torn down and now they're building a brick building. And that looks like it's wood. So that's the first thing. They came in and built all these wood buildings at first, what they could, because that was the only thing they could really bring in large quantities on wagons until they got the train. And then somehow they had to start making a brick oven kiln in order to start making brick. Until then, they would have had to ship it all in too. So now that I've kind of explained that and told you this thing is so tied in together and I could tie it into all things. Okay, so let's look at Central City. Central City, they are telling you here that they 1878, the image of the Colorado Central Railroad train upon its arrival in Central City, Colorado. And so this is supposed to be in 1878 on this date. And so I'm having a hard time trying to really pin down when the train actually got there. But you can see in this picture, and this is why it's so important to look at all this, you can see brick buildings in the back. So how is it in Black Hawk, Colorado, Central City, they got brick buildings, stone buildings before the train? And when did they get time to build all that when they were being a mining town? And what I mean when you look at history, and I'll cover that at some point, just the idiocy of this when you look at what they started with, what they had, and just like that, magically overnight, we had the biggest, baddest shit. And you don't go from that. You don't go building a Lego to building a rocket, you know, and that's kind of what happened here. And if you can explain it, then please, by all means, I'll give you the floor. But I'm telling you, when I start questioning it and showing you, there's no denying we've had a great reset and they've done something to our history. So I'm going to go into the wars and everything about this Central City Railroad, and this is how it's going to tie into it. And let's take another picture at something in Central City to show you guys. So I don't know when this was taken, but they were saying in 1875 to 1877. And if you look here, there's massive brick buildings. There's also this church. And these are very important because they're markers. And I know that it has to do with our faith and healing because it's one and the same, I believe. And we've gotten away from it. That's why we're all so sick. And they made sure of it, that we're poisoned and sick, so we're at each other. This is a well-coordinated attack on the United States. When Trump told you it was attacked from within, that's where this is at. And it's continued till this day. That's why they hate Trump so much, because he's about ready to expose it. And I hope that he does. Because for the first time, I've actually put faith in somebody in the United States government to start telling the truth. I believe Trump wants to tell us all about this, but he can't. Because it would just, you know, because he's going to know, they're going to know that he was an insider to this. And he never told it, and they were only his buddies or so forth. Because I could tell you right now, Trump figured this out. I could tell you by the building that he did in New York. He figured it out real quick if he didn't already know. So, I will continue on with this video, and like I said, I can make them for hours, and I'm sorry, but it's so much information to cover to make you guys see all the craziness. But when you look at the history, and this is serious, all of the wars and everything and how they did all this, and I'll go over all of this next.